In this video, we'll be discussing about another object-oriented programming concept, that is interfaces. What are interfaces and how you can use them and how it creates some value in your programming language or when you're writing the code, right? Understanding these things are very important. And I also used to believe that interfaces were not of much use in my starting, but I later understood that interface actually gives you a direction, or it acts like a guide to you when you're writing classes, uh, of which something they have to do. Like, let's say I have to design an interface for something, uh, or I would say interface acts as kind of blueprint to me, which doesn't let me deviate from the base principles but add another extra information which is needed. So we'll discuss that. We'll see how through the code wise it works and how you can play a good role with interfaces and everything, right? So interfaces goes very well with classes, and there is always one confusion in TypeScript, that what are interfaces and what are type aliases. We'll see that one as well thoroughly, right? Yeah, let's get started. So let me create a new file. Interfaces. Interface is the keyword which is used to declare an interface. So interface person, right? So when I'm defining this, when I'm doing this, it means I'm defining an interface. An interface can contain object or properties, functions or methods. Okay, so interface can contain properties and functions and describe them. So example, yesterday, or like we have seen the person object, right? Person object contains all of these values and the methods. So basically, if I want to declare an interface saying person, so whenever a person needs a person object is being created, or when somebody is extending person, so like person, employee, student, teacher, all of these are persons and you are extending your value. So how or what are the mandatory things which are needed in the person, right? So I can define them in this fashion. Name is a string, right? Age is a string, right? Then I can say place is a string, and then I can say what is the other property which we have declared? Mobile. So mobile is a string. So now when I declared this, and when somebody is creating a new person object, or somebody is writing the class for it which has methods and everything for everything inside a class, maybe to get the person name, maybe to increase the person's age, or to find out the place, etc., all of that thing will be defined in the class, whereas interface acts as a guide for this class. So class will implement interface. So let me write it down. Person, right? So person interface. Okay, so instead of naming this person, I'll name something else, hero. Okay, so class hero. See, class hero incurrently implements class person. Did you mean to extend person and inherit its members as a subclass? Or type hero is missing the following properties from the person type. So what it is saying is, right? What it is saying is, yeah. So what it is saying is, hero incurrently implements the interface person interface. So since you are saying that whoever wants to create a new person, they have to implement this interface, it means from here what all properties a person should have, they will be defined. So since you are implementing this but your class doesn't have those methods, it is throwing me an error. Now what I have to do is, in my class, I have to mandatorily declare these variables. So let me copy all of this to save some time. And yeah, so now it has gone, the error has gone. So why do I need this, right? So why can't you directly declare the values and everything? Okay, so at this point of time, you know that name, age and place are the things which are mandatory for your application. And many people started creating their own classes, random, many people, hundreds of people are working on your project. So they are extending, they are creating new persons, extending already existing person, extending student, they are making college students, all of these. But how do you ensure? So at some stage down the hierarchy, you want to know that what is the age. But college student doesn't even have an age property defined, because they didn't find any requirement for it. But you are treating all of them to be persons, but how can I be person without age, right? So like I'm saying, class college student is there. Then I have class high school student, right? So if I don't define what an high school student should have, now inside high school student, again we might have high school student from Hyderabad, whatever it is, or high school student boys, something of this sort, right? So to control or to give them a clear direction that these are the mandatory properties which should be present, I define an interface, and I also say that a method should be present, change name, right? It returns void, okay, and it takes name string. So change name is a method. Now if you hover onto this, class hero incorrectly implements interface. Property change name is missing in the type hero but required in type person interface. So it is saying you didn't implement this method, so automatically it came here. Now whoever is going to implement the person object, they should mandatorily have person interface. They should mandatorily have, or the compiler enforces all of them to mandatorily have this property. So see, I have used the plugin which automatically gave me the implementations or the declarations for those files. So when I don't do anything, when I don't implement it correctly, it gives me an error. Okay, so in this interface, some properties can be optional, some properties may not be optional. So in that case, you can mention a question mark over here. Then what it says is this particular variable is an optional. It means you can implement or you cannot implement. It's your choice. It's up to you. So if you feel that mobile number is not mandatory because maybe school children are not having mobiles, or we can assume that, though it is wrong. So you can define it this way. So it says person interface may or may not have a mobile number property, but if you want, you can add it. So you can provide optional parameters in this fashion by adding a question mark at before the column, right? Then one interface can extend another interface. So first thing is, each interface can have any properties, right? And it can have methods as well. So how do you define method? Change age, so or change age number, and it is going to return you a number. So whenever you define, so at this point of time you identified that, hey, this function is mandatory for all the persons, then automatically you change in the interface file, and automatically every class shows an error saying that it is incorrectly implemented. So you just have to do this. So it's like somebody is guiding you from behind, saying that all these are mandatory, and if by chance you have missed, your compiler is going to help you in figuring out or implementing those methods which you feel are mandatory in your application, right? And as I was saying, one interface can extend other interface. So let's say person, right? So or it's fine, person. Now I want to declare another interface, student interface, right? Here I will have all the properties of school, all the properties of person, and some additional values, right? School name, string, and I would say class, studying in is string again. So now I want a student interface, but also the properties of this interface, right? So we have already learned the concept of extents or inheritance in our classes lecture, where we can extend one class with another class. In the same way, here one interface can extend another interface. So this is totally possible. It means that now student interface will have all the properties of the person interface and also these additional properties which are solely belongs to student interface. So extension is totally possible, right? And when you want to define, okay, when you want to define a indexed signature. So first thing, let me explain what is an indexed signature. So object is equal to, right? Sometimes it can be x of 10 and sometimes your object can be, or let me put it in the comments, object can be x of 10 or another object can be y of 10, y of 20 or something. Now, how can I write a type? How can I write a type for both of these to be satisfied, right? So my question is object 1 is equal to x of 10, right? Or I would say name is equal to Vasudev, right? Or there is another object which is having place equal to Hyderabad, right? So let me do this also 10, right? So I want to define a type or I want to define an interface to represent both of these, right? How can you do that? So I can index or signature this types of objects in with a single statement like this: interface generic object is equal to square brackets and string. Here I would say key to be string. So what I am trying to do here is, right, yes. So what I am trying to do here is I am trying to define, see, it is not giving me any error, but if I do this 10 comma Vasudev, it doesn't allow, right? So basically what it is doing is here the key can be any string, so this generic object means that the key can be any string and the value can be any string. So here by defining this you don't technically have to name, place, all of this. So usually what you do, you define it like this, right? Name and string and place and string. But instead of doing all of this, to represent all of these values directly, you can say key string and string. So this is totally possible in TypeScript. You can directly refer to all of the values dynamically by mentioning this. It means the key can be anytime. It can be a string, and it can be the other side can be string or number based on whatever it is. So if you say like this, so see, it started giving me a number. The number is not assignable to the type string, right? So here y20. So same error. The number is not assignable to type string. So that way you can define a generic one wherein you don't have to explicitly define for each key x, y, z. So sometimes this object may contain multiple hundreds of keys. So you're not supposed to define those hundreds of keys, because maybe you are getting that data from somewhere from the backend, right? So in such cases, you know that the key is gonna be always string and the value is gonna be always string. So it means key and value can be of any variable, but they are of type string only. So in such cases, you can define a generic interface which will deal with all of such scenarios on a broad scale, right? Yeah. Next, we will discuss about types of, interface. One feature of interface. So let's say I have defined person interface again. Now I am saying change place. Okay, so this is going to return me a string, and this is going to take place as string. Now, thing here is that, see, after doing this, as soon as I declared another interface with the same name, what happened? Our class started throwing error. That is totally fine. Class hero incorrectly implements interface, person interface, property change place is missing. So neither it has overridden the previous one. Okay, so since if you think that by redeclaring the same interface again, if you think that this is going to replace the above one, you are totally wrong. Because see, when you hover onto this, you will get to see that a name, age, place, change mode, all of these have been not implemented. So what does it say? And when I implement through the plugin, it is going to implement all the properties from the first interface and also the last one as well. So what technically happens is that when you redeclare a interface, it kinds of merge with all the older declarations. So when you are redeclaring, ultimately what it happens is, ultimately what the compiler does is it overrides, it merges all of these things, all of the things to a one single interface. Now, why is it important? Right? So you have defined person interface in some class or some place, and your project is being extended to different use cases and all, and suddenly you want to extend the person interface. Now, by mistake, or you are not sure that there is already a person interface you are creating. So if you define that interface in your class, what happens is that it, instead of overwriting the older one which nobody knew, it merges with the older one, and it gives you an error saying that this is not a new interface, but it's being extended, or it's somewhere the interface has been already declared. So in terms of interface, the override doesn't happen, but it kind of merges all the interface declarations into one single interface, which you need to keep in mind, right? Which is very, very important. And interfaces are not just used for extending or implementing classes, they can also be used on a plain function. So person, so they can act as if they are type as well, like this. They can act as a type identifier as well, or they can act as like this, which implements. So interfaces are implemented, and you can implement multiple interfaces. Let's see. So you can implement multiple interfaces, any number of interfaces for the same class, and you can create a common type. You can create a common type by intersecting two, like this, person interface and student interface. So common is now intersection of both of these, right? So that is totally possible. So these are the different concepts of interfaces, wherein you can extend multiple interface. You can use the interface on the function as a type, like this, person fn, which we just declared, person interface, right? So this acts as a type guard now to maintain it in the same type, and you can check for the you can intersect an interface, two interfaces like this, and generate a new type out of it, right? So all these are possible in interfaces, and making good use of interface really helps in maintaining the good code guidelines of your company. And always it is recommended, or it is said, that first you write interfaces, you decide on interface, and then you go on to building classes. This is a good programming practice which everybody should follow, because interface gives you the bare skeleton to your entire project, and from there the direction can be easily taken out, and your application development becomes very easy and also very thoughtful, right? So let's wrap the interfaces till here.